Okay, so today we are looking at chapter 10. This is integrated program design for youths, but at the same time, it's kind of just integrated program design for anybody because that's our priority. So youths, we would primarily spend our time in phases 1, 2, and 5. I goofed that up, 1, 2, and 5. That's how we would do things if we were just training an actual youth. But this program design class is an overall program design class, right? So I want to teach you how to do youth, adults, whatever, right? So if we're looking at it, when we talk about like program design, the whole idea here is that you are going to use NASM's OPT model, which is a very practical and systematic system that does the work of periodization for you. So when I say like what periodization is, what I'm talking about is like waves of difficulty, right? Or like different types of stimuli. So, you know, for instance, like if you go from like an area of low volume to an area of high volume, right? We don't want to only do high volume all the time. Your body's going to adapt to it, or maybe it'll get overtrained and then get injured, right? So what we want to do is we want to have like waves, right? We want to build like a light foundation, then we want to go up a level, make it a little bit harder, go up a level, then we want to kind of reset, and we want to go through like these overarching waves. And honestly, it kind of looks like the stock market, you know, like it's like you're kind of going up and down, but you're generally going up, right? And that's what we're talking about when we talk about periodization. I want to take you from areas of, you know, low intensity to areas of high intensity. And then I want to restart with that low intensity again, because that low intensity, this version is going to be at a generally higher, you know, performance than the last time we did it, but it's still your low intensity. Then we kind of amp that up. And so we make your, so you might start with like, you know, bench pressing, or you're doing like a stability ball chest press, right? Because that's a stabilization exercise. You might start with something like that for a high number of repetitions, somewhere around 15, let's say, right? Somewhere between 12 and 20. So we start with like 15 reps of that. Now, because the repetitions are relatively high, your weight's not going to be very much. But then we move into a strength phase where we do really heavy weights. And that's going to strengthen your chest and lead to like better prime mover recruitment and more motor units and things like that. Then we're going to go into power, and that's going to develop like your velocity. Then when we get all the way back to stabilization again and we decide to reset, your body will have adapted and your chest has gotten stronger over the last 3 months, but that power was really hard on the body. So we want to give it time to kind of adapt to that and recover. So we go back into stabilization, and maybe the last time you were there, you were doing, you know, at that 3 sets of 15, you were maybe doing, let's say 25 pounds in each hand, right? But now, because your chest is so much stronger in general, maybe we're doing 30 pounds or 35 pounds. Then we're going to move back into strength, and like our bench press, we ended maybe around 145 pounds, but now we're starting at 145 pounds and we build it up even further. So it's almost like when you go back through these cycles, that periodization, you are picking up where you left off and continuing to improve, but you're never getting to a place where you plateau or get an overuse injury. And so the OPT model does a lot of that work for you, so that you don't really have to think too much about it. It's a very systematic and proven method. So here's what we're looking at, right? So we want to be able to, our objectives for today, we want to understand the basic levels and the basic phases of NASM's OPT model. We want to understand how to use the RPE method, right, that Borg scale. And we also want to be able to incorporate things like circuit training and cardio training into our routines, only because those are really effective for youths in particular. So I'm actually not going to spend too much time on circuits and cardio because we've already kind of talked about that. Mostly what we're looking at today is reps, sets, tempos, intensities, and having a very deep understanding of the OPT model. So here's the thing about this, right? Like the OPT model, the reason it's organized the way it is it's based on all of the rules of how our bodies adapt to things physiologically, right? Like the 3 individual levels, right? Stabilization, strength, and power. They correspond with a lot of our clients' goals, right? It doesn't make any sense to take somebody who's brand new off the street and start working on power and rate of force production, right? Because like, first off, they don't have any force production, right? So that's not very safe for them to really dive into. And they might not know how to move efficiently, so that they haven't built their foundation. So that's not very safe. So we want to start by teaching them how to do the movements and getting used to building some exercise tolerance. That's the whole point of the stabilization level. Then the strength level is sort of what a lot of people tend to think of when they think of like resistance training, and it uses really heavy loads and moderate to high volumes at moderate to high intensities. So that creates like an immune response where the body goes, man, I need some more muscle, right? And that's why hypertrophy is in here, but like max strength is really good for hypertrophy as well. Strength endurance is really good for hypertrophy as well. Like all of the strength phase is really good for developing like size and even a little bit of power, which we're going to see in a little bit. But it's really just about getting something from point A to point B, right? Once, and so it's not really about like how fast you're moving. So if we want to like be an athlete, right? Well, most athletic events are based around doing something quickly. Like if two people are doing the same thing, but one of them does it faster, they're the one who's going to win whatever event that is, right? So that's where we get into the power phase of the OPT, right? And we do want to like make that where we increase our rate of force production. So we learn how to move in stabilization, we learn how to produce force in strength, and we learn how to produce that force quickly in power. And it all builds on itself. And there's certain things, there's certain ways to lift and certain reps and certain intensities and things like that that allow us to do that. There's certain tempos that develop stabilization better than others. There's certain intensities that develop strength better than others. And then we go back to tempos and strength. We put both those concepts together to get power. So these are all just based around the rules of physiology. And without the OPT model, you would just have to consider all of these rules every time you write a program for every one of your clients. So for instance, like, if I had a client come to me and they say, hey, I'm looking to lose some weight and tone up, right? So when they say tone up, I'm gonna be like, okay, well, that means that they want to like lose some fat and they want to, maintain as much muscle as possible. So we're gonna focus on like a program that burns lots of calories, and so then, but also like still develops some muscle. So lots of calories. That means lots of time under tension with very little recovery, which means I can't really go too high on the intensity. So I should probably do somewhere between 12 and 15 repetitions. And then because they're a brand new client, I should probably do it at like a slow tempo. They said they wanted to like burn more, so I'm probably gonna give them very limited rest as well. And then they want to lift somewhat heavy. So yeah, I'm not gonna take it all the way up to 20. I'm just gonna keep it somewhere between 12 and 15. So that's gonna be like 65 to 75% of their 1 rep max. So I'd have to like see what I'm doing. Like I'd have to consider all of these things. I'd be like, my client wants this, and I know that this happens when I do this. My client wants this, and I know that this happens when I do that. And I'd have to like match all these things and reach into my brain and do all of this thinking about like how the body responds to certain types of stress. Or I could use NASM's OPT model, and I could look at a chart that has all these rules written on it, So I could go, well, I'm going to put you in the stabilization phase, and the stabilization phase is going to look, where'd I put it? Where's my big chart? What? Come on. There it is. I looked right at it. It was in the folder that I first opened. So I would look at the stabilization phase, and I'd be like, all right. So that means that we are going to lift at between 1 to 3 sets, 12 to 20 reps, 4-2-1 tempo, 50 to 70% of your 1 rep max. I'm going to give them 0 to 90 seconds of rest. And there we go. Then like without the OPT model, what I also have to consider? I'd be like, all right, well, what type of stretches should I focus on? I want to make sure like I don't reduce their strength. So I can do, should I do static stretches or not? Well, because static stretches are in the stabilization phase, we know that like static stretches don't have much of an effect on your 1 rep max until you get above 70% of your 1 rep max. So static stretches don't really affect anything until you get to like above 70%. And because resistance all in the stabilization phase has me at 50 to 70%, I'm not really losing any strength there. So I don't have to tell my client, avoid, I don't have to tell my client to avoid stretching. I just have to tell them you know, if we lift at a higher intensity where we get to maybe 70 to 80% or 75 to 85%, right? If we start getting up to there, then we need to avoid static stretches, but not stretching in general. So those are all of our rules, right? There's our pitch for why the OPT model is so important. So when I say the OPT model, it is a systematic, right? It goes in order. It's also progressive so that it builds on itself. A systematic and progressive system that follows a clear set of rules in order to effectively apply the principles of exercise physiology. So for those of you who have been through our exercise physiology classes, all that stuff that you had to learn is done for you with NASM's OPT model, which is great. So the stabilization level, right, is the foundation for all other training levels, and we use it to build upon, right? So it's a level that consists only of one phase, but very important for youths, but really important for everybody. And it's going to use lower intensities in order for your clients to be able to learn specific movement patterns. So at low intensities and slow durations, it gives your brain plenty of opportunity to learn how to move the way that you want to teach it how to move. So it's focusing on stabilization, endurance, and neuromuscular efficiency, right? Keeping your joints aligned the way they're supposed to be, teaching your muscles how to create ATP consistently, and it's going to teach your brain how to recruit the right muscles at the right time for the right amount of force. And so by learning those movement patterns at a slow tempo, you know, that's going to make you have better form in general when you are tempted to lift like a super heavy weight and arch your back or something like that, right? Your brain's going to know, you know, this is not really how we're supposed to move. So the stabilization level consists of one phase, which is the stabilization endurance phase. Technically, this is something that I struggle with. I often just call the phase and the level both stabilization. Technically, the phase is the stabilization endurance phase. It's a little bit of a better descriptor because it is developing endurance, right? And so that phase, that one phase, uses low loads in unstable environments to develop muscular and joint stability. So you're teaching the muscles how to like contract, but not like over contract. And you're teaching the joints how to stabilize, right? So this is our foundation for, again, for everybody. It's going to stress stability with a high number of repetitions. It's going to use a slow tempo, and we progress it by making it more unstable. So if this was my client, right, and he's doing a step up to balance here, the reason it's a step up to balance rather than a step up is because like I want him to focus on learning how to fire his glute and his core and keep his shoulders back, right, while maintaining posture, even though he's standing on one leg. And if he got better and better and better at it, and he gets to a place where this isn't hard enough anymore, I'm going to make it harder by maybe throwing an AirX pad under his foot or something like that to make it more unstable. One of my favorite things is actually just to use like, rather than actually using an AirX pad, I love to build my clients up on like a platform step. And then once they get good at it, I put them on the benches at the gym, which have like the squishy pads for, you know, comfort. But that little bit of squishiness is what, you know, adds some instability, which I'm a big fan of. So that is the stabilization level. Now, I do want to open up and take a look at some of our rules here for the stabilization level, because we can see here is our overall workout, right? We have, again, these are all of your program design acute variables for all 5 phases here. And you'll notice we've got them broken down. The strength level kind of has some gaps in here, and that's because all of this is the same until you get to the resistance section, right? And that's where you're going to see some rules that are unique to each phase. So if I zoom in here, if you've got a client in stabilization, right, for your warm-up, you are going to focus on our category, which is corrective flexibility. And corrective flexibility is going to consist of foam rolling or some type of SMR, right? You know, it could be a tiger tail, doesn't have to be a foam roller. And static stretches, long duration, slow stretches. Now, I will say one little asterisk here. I did not put this in the handout version, but Maggie, you are heading to Capstone on Monday. And for anybody who's watching this heading to Capstone on Monday, technically corrective and flexibility does consist of one more thing, which would also be PNF stretches. And that's those like neuromuscular stretches that you're going to learn with Mo. So technically, that would be under this category as well, but I'm going to delete it because I don't want it in my example. We're still in core mode here. So that's corrective flexibility, right? And so corrective flexibility are stretches that you're going to do for about 1 to 3 sets, and you're going to hold your stretches for 30 seconds for each repetition. Now, I know that like some people will say, well, don't do your slow stretches. That reduces your strength. That sentence is mostly true. It reduces your strength if you are lifting at high intensities. But again, like I mentioned earlier, if you take a look here, we are not lifting at high intensities. We're lifting at low intensities over long durations. So you don't want to do static stretches if you're going to go max out for the day, but you do want to do static stretches if you don't care about how, heavy weights. I will say, I'm going to put one asterisk next to that as well, because sometimes I get this question. What if you have really overactive muscles? So let's say it's like me, right? Like I've got really overactive hamstrings and I'm supposed to do a barbell squat day, right? Like I don't want to do static stretches for my hamstrings before I go do my heavy lifting, right? Well, I do have overactive muscles that alter my form. And when I don't stretch my hamstrings, I'll get a posterior shift while I'm doing that barbell squat. So with a client like me, that is where you still, if you have severe alterations in posture due to overactive muscles, even if you are in the strength phase the strength level, or if you're even in the power level, that's where you still do static stretches. And then we accept the fact that it's going to reduce performance slightly, but we also accept the fact that it's going to decrease the risk of injury, which is the most important thing always. So that is where we break that rule, by the way, just so you guys are aware. Then we're going to focus on stage 1 cardio, which you'll notice is only 65 to 75% of your heart rate max, right? So clients in the stabilization level are going to get stage 1 cardio routines, which is going to consist of one zone, right? The 65 to 75% max heart rate, zone 1. And you'll notice this actually kind of matches up with what we're going to see here, right? Like this is like zone 1. How do you do it, right? You go to the gym, start jogging, and don't stop. That's it. Like that's zone 1, right? There's no intervals here. It's just low intensity for long duration. And honestly, this is the boring cardio that most people think of when they like talk about how much they hate cardio. Like, it's just so boring. I got on a treadmill and start going, I'm doing bored, Okay, yeah. I mean, here's the thing. You don't always have to do your cardio that way, but that is a great way to build a foundation. If I'm trying to get you used to being on your feet for 30 minutes, I do want to get you to build up your endurance by building a foundation of baseline cardio. And that's why this exists in our first level. Also, that long duration is going to pair really well with the long duration that we're seeing here. But we'll get to that again in a little bit. So again, you start to notice like why all of this is put together. Then we get into our movement preparation section, and we talked about how if it's a core part, you're going to pick core, and we're in the stabilization level. So core stabilization exercises, balance stabilization exercises, plyometric or reactive stabilization exercises, right? So your rules for that are going to be, this is so interesting because they're all the same until you get to freaking core here, which is 1 to 4 sets of core exercises. Then you're going to see 1 to 3 sets and 1 to 3 sets for the other ones. I very rarely give 4 sets for core work, only because like I like things to be symmetrical and easy for my clients to remember. I can't even think of the last time I did 4 sets of core stuff, because I usually like to also perform this as a circuit. I love moving through movement prep as fast as I can. I love it. It's really important, but like I want to get into like, the hard stuff. So we're focusing on 1 to 4 sets for core, 12 to 20 repetitions for core. However, a lot of times most of the core stabilization exercises are isometric, so you'll probably do between 30 and 45 seconds instead. You're going to do a slow 4-2-1 tempo where applicable. So for instance, if you were doing those McGill setups, you would go up for 1, hold for 2, and then descend for 4. Up for 1, hold for 2, and down for 4. And you would rest 0 to 90 seconds. Then We have our balance stabilization exercises, which are 12 to 20 repetitions if it's a double-sided exercise, which it never is, or 6 to 10 exercises if it's single-sided, which because it's balance and you're standing on one leg, it's freaking always single-sided. So 6 to 10 reps there. So, you know, if I had my leg up, right? And again, exercise selection-wise, right, I'm picking balance stabilization exercises, which are all those balance exercises that, again, do not move the balance leg. Remember, the most important thing for remembering which exercises to put where is to remember that they all have a defining characteristic. Core stabilization exercises are defined by the fact that they do not move your spine. Balance stabilization exercises are defined by the fact that they do not move your balance leg. Plyometric stabilization exercises are defined by the fact that they do not move once you land. So they're all about stabilizing landing motions. I really don't care how high you can jump. I care about how effectively you can learn how to land. Down here, I'm totally going to care about how high you can jump. But again, right now I'm working on your foundation, not the advanced stuff. We're not working on the roof yet. We're not putting appliances in the house. We're just laying down concrete. So 1 to 3 sets, and we're going to do 5 to 8 reps, which is not very many repetitions. But again, it doesn't have to be, because again, we're just trying to teach the brain how to land, and we're holding those landings for 3 to 5 seconds every time. So when you're writing out your routine, you're going to do it exactly like that. Then we're going to move our client into some SAQ training, which is generally optional, but a lot of times we'll end up doing it with our youths. And so these are exercises that involve limited horizontal inertia and limited unpredictability, which is a big fancy way of saying out of the S, the A, and the Q, we're doing the S. We're mostly focusing on speed. We don't have a lot of horizontal inertia. We don't have a lot of unpredictability. So that's 1 to 2 sets, 2 to 3 repetitions, which means like if you set up a speed ladder, and you had your client like sprint and go through the speed ladder, they would sprint to the cone, turn around, a little directional change, you know, and then go through the speed ladder again. And like you'd have them do, you know, 2 to 3 repetitions of that. Give them a moderate tempo. You want them to go fast. It's a speed ladder, but at the same time, you're not like, go, 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 you know, like you're trying to teach them how to do the movements properly. If they're kicking that speed ladder everywhere and it's getting all tangled up, you know, that's not really helping them develop their speed. It's all, again, foundational. It's all about form, right? And then 0 to 90 seconds of rest. And then we have, by the way, and this is technically a different section of your workout, but if you ever want to like, you know, I used to like draw arrows all the time. I would often do core, balance, reactive, and then put them through a speed ladder at the end. And I would use this actually as recovery. I called it active recovery, and that was really effective for like fat loss programs. Active recovery is a big fancy way of saying a trainer doesn't want to make their clients stop working. And then we have resistance training, right? This is the meat and potatoes. And this is where, until now, we haven't really talked about intensity. The whole purpose of everything we've talked about until now is to either turn overactive muscles off or to turn underactive muscles on. So we really haven't been all about intensity. If my client gets and does like a single leg lift and chop, right? I've got them doing their movement prep and they're going like this. And they do their, you know, 10 repetitions on the left, they do the 10 repetitions on the right. They're not really sweating and they're like, oh, that was fairly easy, right? I might give them a heavier medicine ball. I might put their foot on something squishy, but like, I'm just trying to get their glutes turned on so that we can use them when we get to like the heavy stuff. I'm trying to get their upper, you know, their lower traps turned on, right? So they can use their upper back properly when we get into like the actual workout. I don't really need them to like get their workout in the movement prep section, right? Except for with core. I will say if I've got a client who's like, literally, they're like, I want a 6-pack, that's my goal. I want to see my abs, right? If I got a client like that, I will totally make sure that like they're getting close to failure on their abs, because your abs grow just like any other muscle. But that's really more of like an exception that kind of proves the rule rather than an exception to the rule. Resistance stabilization exercises, right? This is where, you know, everything's the same. The only difference is that we are adding an intensity thing. So until now, you've had to memorize sets, tempo, and rest. Now we got to add this, honestly, most important out of all of them, acute variable, which is intensity. And intensity is the level of demand of the exercise. So 1 to 3 sets, 12 to 20 reps, 4-2-1 tempo, all that's the same. 50 to 70% of the 1 rep max. And then we take 0 to 90 seconds of rest. So those are all of our rules here. So what I want to do now is I'm just going to open up a blank OPT template. And I'm going to build me a stabilization routine based on everything we just talked about. So we're going to call this our stabilization routine. I'm going to put everything that I'm typing in italics, by the way. Let's do that. And so client's name, John Johnson, right? Today is what? 9/17/2020. And our goal, we'll just say, is fat loss. Put them in phase 1. Okay, there we go. Really simple stuff. It's all filled out. Now, I go back to my little list of rules here. I'm starting with corrective flexibility. So John Johnson needs to get foam rolling, static stretches, 1 to 3 sets, 30 seconds each. So I go over here. Let's say I'm going to foam roll his, I'm going to use me as an example. We'll say hamstrings, TFL, and piriformis, right? So there we go. Those are all the 3 muscles that we're going to focus on. We are going to do 1 to 3 sets. So I'm going to do 1 set each, and I'm going to go 30 seconds each exercise, right? Then I'm going to, because I am in corrective flexibility, do static stretches. So we're going to do a static 90-90 hamstring stretch. Right, we're going to do a static standing TFL stretch, which I will put, just for the sake of being fancy here, at the bottom. A static piriformis figure 4 stretch, right? Static piriformis figure 4 stretch. I do want to get 1 upper body exercise or spinal exercise in here, like spinal stretch in here as well. So we're going to do a 90-90 spinal twist, right? So that's a 30-second stretch as well. And then, like I said, standing TFL stretch. I put that at the end only because, like, floor, 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 standing. That's one thing to consider when you're writing program design. Don't make your clients stand up and get down and stand up and get down. It burns time out of your session. It is actually a sneaky way to burn some calories. I actually did used to do routines like that on purpose sometimes if I had like a weight loss client. But that was only during the workout. Don't during the warm up. Everybody will hate you. It's a bad way to like start your session. Then we're gonna do 5 treadmill for 1 set of 5 minutes. And because this is a warm up, I'm just gonna do 50 to 60% heart rate max, right? And then again, all of my static stretches, 30 seconds each, right? And there we go. There's my whole warm up. Now I'm gonna pick 1 core exercise, 1 balance exercise, and 1 reactive exercise, right? So I'm gonna go with a core stabilization exercise, a balance stabilization, and a plyometric stabilization exercise. So now, if I look, oh, I just remembered I didn't email you guys yesterday. Shoot. I apologize. I told you I'd send out those exercise checklists and I forgot. So I'm going to pull up my exercise checklist here, which I will send out immediately. So here are all those static stretches, right, that I just mentioned, or some of them at least. Now I'm going to pick, literally, I'm going to keep this super simple today, guys. Take a look. I'm going to pick the first exercise from every category. This may not be the world's greatest routine, but the idea is to show you how this works. So I'm going to go with marching. That's a core stabilization exercise. A single leg balance, which is a core exercise, a balance stabilization exercise, and a squat jump with stabilization. It's actually not bad. The only one that's simple is the single leg balance. I don't like that exercise. So marching, single leg balance, and what was it, squat jump to stabilization? Yeah, squat jump to stabilization. Right? Now I go back to my sets of rules. 1 to 4 sets, 1 to 3 sets, 1 to 3 sets. Now I'm going to keep this relatively short because this client's also going to do cardio today. So I'm going to do 2 sets for each of these. My reps are 12 to 20, 6 to 10 because it's a single-sided exercise, and 5 to 8. So let's go with, let's go 20. Single leg balance, let's go with 10. And squat jump to stabilization, let's go with 8. My tempo is going to be slow, slow, and 3 to 5 second hold on landing. So we're going to write slow, slow, 3 to 5 second hold on my landing, right? Now I want to do this as a circuit. My client's whole goal here was fat loss, right? So because that was my client's goal, I'm going to make sure that this whole routine burns as many calories as possible. So we're doing a circuit. 0 seconds rest, 0 seconds rest, 60 seconds rest. And there we go. That's my whole movement prep section, right? Marching, by the way, for those of you who don't know it, it's sometimes referred to as a dead bug. It's just without the arms. So marching is where you stand, you actually lay on your back and you just raise one leg up and then you like alternate and raise your other leg up. And so it's just your legs are going like this. If you've ever done the dead bug exercise where you alternate with your arms and legs simultaneously, same exact thing, except better. I actually really like dead bugs. So then just for the sake of it, I am going to throw in a little bit of SAQ. I probably wouldn't actually do this in a routine like this because I'm going to put my client through a little cardio at the end here. But for the sake of it today, we're going to do 2 SAQ exercises where we focus on the speed ladder. And so, because I want to, give you a full example here. So let's say speed ladder 1 ins. And then we'll do speed, ladder, lateral. Oh, wait, no, I told you I was going to pick. Sorry, I lied. Hold on. Going back up here. Did I put the SAQ in here? I didn't. Okay, never mind. Because it's not in your book. Lateral 2 ins. They are in your book. They're just only in that chapter. They're not in the appendix at the end. So lateral 2 ins, and that's where you go side to side, both feet in each box. I go back to my set of rules, 1 to 2 sets, 2 to 3 reps, moderate tempo, right? So let's do 2 sets of each. We've been doing that. Let's do 3 reps and we'll say moderate, 0 seconds of rest, 60 seconds rest, right? So we'll do it as a circuit. Again, if I were actually training for speed, by the way, I'd definitely give them 60 seconds of rest in both. The more rest, the more intense somebody can work, the more they're going to get out of it. But not my goal for a fat loss client. My goal is to burn a bunch of calories. So then we're going to keep it really simple, and we are going to go into a total body routine. And I'm literally going to pick the first exercise, and I wouldn't do this in the real world. I'd base these exercise selections on my client. But again, we're going to keep it really simple. I'm going to go with a ball squat curl to press. That's my total body exercise. I'm going to go with a chest stabilization exercise, which is the ball dumbbell chest press. I'm going to go with a standing cable row. A single leg dumbbell scaption. This isn't a bad routine. I don't hate this. Biceps, triceps, and ball squat. Right? So there's my whole thing there. Now to get this to fit on one page, I'm going to delete this real quick. And again, I go back to my rules, right? So there's my exercise selection. They're all stabilization exercises. So then I go back to my set of rules here. I need to pick 1 to 3 sets, 12 to 20 reps, 4 to 1 tempo, 50 to 70% of my 1 rep max, with 0 to 90 seconds of rest. So here's the thing. If I knew what my client's 1 rep max was, I would calculate that out and do 70% of it, because I'm going to focus on staying around 12 repetitions today. I know that seems like kind of low, but my client told me they wanted to have fat loss and they wanted to kind of tone up, right? So because they want to tone up a little bit, they want to maintain their muscle mass. I'm not going to go just only to high repetitions. I'm going to keep it moderate repetitions while still under like a long time under tension. So we're getting kind of the best of both worlds here. If I were really, really, really working on only their endurance, I would definitely go higher with the repetition scheme. So I'm going to do 3 sets of everything. And I'm going to go with 12 reps of everything. 12, 12, 12, 6 each, 6 each, 12, and 12. I will say, actually, the one thing that sucks about this routine, we went with a ball squat, curl to press, and a ball squat. That's, but you get it. My tempo, because this is a compound movement, I'm just going to write slow. I'm not going to say 4, 2, 1, right? My ball, but the rest of these, I'm totally going to go with a 4, 2, 1 tempo. So 4 seconds on the eccentric, 2 seconds on the isometric, and 1 second on the concentric. What am I doing? I can copy paste. So there we go. There's my regular tempo. And I'm going to perform this as a circuit, 0 seconds of rest. Give 90 seconds of rest at the end to kind of reset. And there we go. That is a pretty darn, now I as their trainer, I'm definitely going to need to have this all set up before they get there. That's a pretty darn simple routine. Now, this is getting pretty lengthy. Getting through this in an hour is going to be pretty challenging. But for the sake of argument, let's just say this is a 90-minute routine. So I'm going to get a little bit, like this is already going to feel like cardio. Trust me, this circuit at this tempo and this much time under tension, like you're already getting greater than 2 minutes after the second exercise. So we know it's aerobic work, right? So for the most part, you don't need to necessarily do any cardio. But at the end, my client's like, you know what? I want to stick around and do, 20 minutes of cardio. I'll be like, great, let's call that your cool down, right? So we're going to go here and I'm going to put the treadmill on here twice. One of them is going to be 20 minutes at zone 1, 65 to 75% of their heart rate max, right? Then they cool down and do, the regular slow stuff. And then I'm just going to go ahead and copy my warm up from before, right? Same stretches. They have the same overactive muscles. And there's our whole routine. That's probably about 90 minutes right there, maybe a little bit longer. Now, again, really quickly, just so you guys are aware, I'm not a huge fan of 90-minute routines unless your client is getting some time. Like if they were drinking Gatorade during this whole session, I'd be a fan. But after about 90 minutes of exercise, if it goes any longer than that, you are depleting your glycogen stores and you massively lose intensity, which I'm not super worried about. That's why cardio is at the end of the workout, not at the beginning. I'm not worried about them, losing intensity on something that's low intensity. But I don't want them cramping out. I don't want them to fully be glycogen depleted for our next routine starting, if this is my session today, maybe I'm going to meet with them again on Saturday, right? I don't want them to be completely depleted when that comes around. So I would probably have them get some type of meal, or I'd probably just remove this cardio out of here. But there's a kind of full example there, stabilization routine. So I'm just going to save this actually really quick. Desktop, basic stabilization endurance. So there's our phase 1 workout, right? All right, back to the PowerPoint. Any questions, by the way, guys?
Yeah, I got a quick question, Brad. So depending on what your client wants is going to depend on how many reps you give them, correct?
Totally, yep.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, it's always goal-based, right? I mean, you're there to guide them. If your client's like, I want to do low reps, and it's like, you told me you're in a fat loss routine. No, like you're there to guide them, but yeah, it's all based on their goals. This is why so many people I will close the thing, lift technically in a way, the way they kind of shouldn't. All right, back to the PowerPoint here. Let's take a look, and back to our notes as well. Let's take a look at the next level, which is the strength level. So strength is all about building on the foundation that you created earlier, right? This is all about enhancing force production. We learn how to control the movements. Now let's learn how to do those movements under heavy, heavy volumes. So this is going to increase the load-bearing capabilities of your muscles, your tendons, your ligaments, all of it, right? And the big thing here, I love that they got this right here, is all about motor unit recruitment and motor unit synchronization. So you guys have heard me tout this so many times, But strength is not just about how large your muscles are. It's about how well your nervous system can control those muscles. And your nervous system interacts with your muscular system because of motor units, right? A single neuron and all of the fibers, all the muscle cells that neuron zaps, right? So when we talk about motor unit recruitment, we are talking about strength. Like how do I have enough strength to pick this coffee cup up and bring it to my mouth? See how I did that? I got to drink my coffee while I'm teaching. So how do I have enough strength to do that and lift like a barbell like up off the ground? But I make sure that I don't, like when I go to lift that coffee mug, throw it into the ceiling, you know? You always see that in movies where like somebody gets superpowers and like they always have trouble controlling them at first and they like rip the door off the hinges. Right? The reason that something like that happens is because like their brain recruited too many motor units to get the job done. You've probably done this before. If you've ever thought something was going to be really heavy and you go to pick it up and you're like, huh! You know? My dad, I used to work with him moving furniture when I was a kid. And, you know, boxes filled with stuff, you know, we were furniture movers. And so there's all these boxes and stuff. And my dad would always be the one to unload because he was generally the one to load it. But sometimes he would have somebody else load his stuff. And it's in the moving industry, you're supposed to put the light stuff on top and the heavy stuff on bottom because you're on a ladder when you're grabbing the stuff up top. So you want to go light. And my dad would always do the same thing, and he would fool me with it because he was just a great actor. Every time he would do this, and he'd be like, he'd go to pick up a box, and he'd go, oh. And he'd curse and swear, and he'd be like, some jackass put a heavy box up. He's like, all right, I'm going to hand it. You got to be careful. I'm going to hand this to you, and it's really heavy. And so I'd be like underneath him, like gritting ready to get like this giant heavy box. And he would always go, oh no. And he'd act, and he'd drop it. And I would like brace, and it'd be like a lampshade. And he would do that too. And I felt I'd fall for it for years. I mean, years and years and years I fell for it. If he did it today, I'd probably fall for it. I just told you that story. But you know what's funny is like it would like bounce off my hands whenever it would hit because I'd be like recruiting maximal muscle, you know, to be ready for something heavy. And so it would like hit and I wouldn't like cradle it softly. I was recruiting a ton of motor units, right? So the same thing is true when you would think something is super light and you go to pick it up and you're like, whew, you know, that's because you recruited too many motor units. Now your nervous system is arranged to know when that happens and immediately kind of calm down, you know, and that way you don't fling something straight into the air. But the same thing happens in reverse when it comes to recruiting more motor units. So if you go to pick up a heavy barbell, right, your body's going to try to get that job done with as little motor units as possible. It's going to be like, all right, we got a barbell. Let's recruit, I'm just going to pick fake numbers here, 10 motor units. And then you try to lift, nothing happens. All right, we need 15 motor units, right? So you recruit some more, nothing happens until eventually it recruits more and more and more and more and more until it gets to enough where you lift it up. And that's all happening super, super fast. So it all kind of feels like you just lifted with the right amount of force. But it's actually a step-by-step process. Let's try this many. No, let's try this many. No, let's try this many. No, okay, we're close. This many. We got it. Don't recruit anymore, right? And that's how that kind of works. So that's your motor unit recruitment. Now, here's the thing. Remember your nervous system arrangement, right? Remember the all or nothing principle? Your motor units either fire or they don't, which means when they're firing, they're going like this, right? And this is a weak contraction. And this is a strong contraction, right? Super, super fast. So that's another way that we enhance our strength. So by being, oh, I'm sorry, I was describing motor unit firing rate. Sorry, guys. Sorry about that. Synchronization is the next one. Usually they go in that order. It's the other one's not even mentioned on here. So motor unit recruitment is how many motor units you're firing. Motor unit firing rate is how quickly the all or nothing principle can happen, right? Strong signals. You can't fire your motor units for more force. They don't work that way. Your muscles they can contract as much as they can contract, and that's it, right? But if you recruit all the fibers, that's a big muscular contraction. And if you recruit very, very little of the fibers, that is a weaker contraction. That's the recruitment part of things. But the firing rate part of things is also, I gotta stop looking at synchronization. The firing the firing rate is also how you control your contractions. If your body wants to make a weak contraction, it will fire them slowly. And if it wants to have a strong contraction, it will fire them quickly. Then we have synchronization, which is we want like a tug of war. We want all of the motor units like recruiting at the same time, rather than like when I'm pulling from my hardest, the person behind me is resetting their grip, because then we're not working together, right? So when you're firing, you want them in sync, and that creates a strong contraction as well. So those three things are what determine your strength when it comes to your nervous system, right? Recruitment, it's the number of motor units. Firing rate, that's how fast they're firing. And synchronization, which is all of them working together. And we, Abraham Lincoln would love that part. Motor units divided cannot stand. So the other thing about the strength level is that it is going to super increase your total training volume. So when I say total training volume, what I mean is I am multiplying your sets times your reps. So if we look at like the volume, you're doing like 3 sets total here, but then you go down here, you're doing 4 sets. You go down here, you're doing 5 sets. You go down here, you're doing up to 6 sets. That total volume is going up like crazy. Now, it's not just your volume. It's not just your sets. It's also how many reps you're doing. And ironically, there is actually a high amount of volume if you consider your repetitions. When you multiply like 12 times 3 or 20 times 1, right? And it makes kind of an X here because you're going to go with like the high number on this one. You're going to go with the low number on this one, right? Sets and reps are kind of backwards of each other. So you think about like that's maybe a total volume of like maybe 40. And you go down here and it's like 6 sets of maybe like 1 repetition. That's not that many. But even if you did 6 sets times 5, that's only 30 total volume. But here's the difference. The other thing that makes up your volume is the intensity, the amount of weight that you're lifting. And so because this is a low percentage of weight, the volume's pretty low. Whereas this, see that big number right there, that's a lot of volume, right? So if I lifted 100 pounds, which is my 1 rep max, 6 times, that's 600 total volume, right? So that's actually quite a lot when you start to look at it versus like 70 pounds for maybe 12 repetitions. So there's kind of a difference in volume here, right? So that is a big thing here. So that's the strength level in general. Now let's look at each of these individual phases. So there's 3 phases within the strength level, right? It's building a foundation of stabilization, and it's all about force production. So strength endurance, hypertrophy, and maximum strength. Strength endurance is all about increasing the load capacity of your muscles, because that's what strength is in general. So that part of this sentence is not surprising at all, right? The load capability of your muscles. But while pairing it using a superset with a stabilization exercise to further challenge stabilization and force production. That's where we get into the endurance part of strength endurance. It is heavier than stabilization was, but it's still working for a relatively high number of reps. So it is still all about like enduring and stabilizing, right? So the strength level, typically with youths, like I said, we're only going to use strength endurance because unless they're physically mature, they're not really going to experience hypertrophy or maximal strength gains. So when we're talking about it, you're going to do a moderate number of sets and a moderate number of reps, and you're going to do a medium tempo when it comes to your strength movement. So you're going to use superset techniques here. Strength endurance is pretty unique. It's unique on the OPT model. The only one that's somewhat close to it is the power level. So when we look down here, right, and I go to the resistance section, you'll notice your exercise selection, we actually got a little bit of blue stuff in our green section here, right? We do your exercise selection isn't just resistance strength, it's resistance strength first, superset with resistance stabilization. So here's the thing, imagine me doing a bench press, right? And I'm doing, let's just say for the sake of argument, we'll say 12 repetitions. I'm like, boom, boom, boom. I get through my 12 and I'm like, boom, and I rack it. Immediately, I'm gonna drop onto the floor and I'm gonna burn my chest out by finishing with some slow push-ups. If that doesn't build endurance, I don't know what will, right? So that's a ton of enduring strength. I got the heavy force production from the bench press, but I got the endurance from doing another chest exercise immediately afterwards. And I did it at that slow tempo because that slow tempo from before is what built our endurance. So I like to think of this as phase 1.5 more than I like to think of it as phase 2, personally. That is our example strength endurance stuff. Yeah, now I don't need power. So let's go ahead and talk about like what that looks like. So here's the thing. That was all very resistance section specific, but strength endurance, hypertrophy, and max strength, it doesn't matter what phase you're in. If you are in the strength level, your warm up and cool down, your movement prep, and your SAQ are all going to be the same. They're all like, none of that changes, whether it's endurance, hypertrophy, or max strength. The only thing that's different in the resistance section is reps. And Robert, this kind of piggybacks on that question you asked earlier, where you're like, it's based on your client's goals, right? Well, if my client's goal is to build strength in general, if they're a hypertrophy client, I'm going to focus on like their body parts by doing this version of lifting. But if I've got a max strength client, like a power lifter, I'm going to focus on having them lift like this. But both of those athletes, even though they have different goals, again, the movement prep section is really all about just turning underactive muscles on. So that doesn't change whether you're a power lifter, an athlete, like an endurance athlete, or a bodybuilder. All of that strength stuff there, and all in their warm up too, like their overactive stuff, like their flexibility, all that's the same. There's no such thing as a hypertrophy core exercise. There's just strength. There's also no such thing as a hypertrophy exercise. There's just strength exercises. There's hypertrophy reps, which is 6 to 12. There's max strength reps, which is 1 to 5. And there's endurance reps, which is, I mean, it says 8 to 12, but really that's 16 to 24 because it's a superset, right? So that's what we need to remember. The phases only apply to the resistance section. So let's build us a strength endurance routine. That didn't work. Where's my blank? Blank, blank, blank. All right. So this is a strength endurance client, right? This is John Johnson again. And we'll just say like John's moving a month forward. So it's no longer September 17th. It is October 17th. Right? And his goal is still fat loss. He is now in phase 2. So I go to my acute variables. I need to choose active flexibility, right? Which is going to still consist of foam rolling. So I'm going to foam roll the same things, right? I'm going to SMR hamstrings, piriformis, and what was the other one I said? TFL. And then I'm going to do active versions of all of those stretches. So I'm going to do an active 90-90 hamstring, an active piriformis figure 4 stretch. Let's do an active 90-90 spinal twist. And finally, an active standing TFL stretch. Okay, so basically, you know, I'll use the TFL stretch as an example. You know, first month I did this. Right? Next month I'm doing this. It's not a big difference, but they're different stretches. And part of that periodization is making sure that I give my client a new stimulus so they don't get used to everything, right? Their body's gonna go, okay, that's a little different. All right, you know. And so it has to get. It's like I guess I'll adapt, you know. We're gonna keep it on the treadmill. One set of everything, 30 seconds each. Five minutes, 50 to 60% by max. And there we go. Now let's open up that strength checklist here. And I'm gonna go with a ball crunch. And I'm gonna go with a single leg squat. And I'm gonna go with a squat jump. That actually worked pretty well. That's a good pair compared to last month. Those are all very similar. Marching is not too far off of a ball crunch. Single leg balance, I guess, is somewhat far off, but that's not bad. All right, now looking at our rules, right? Oh, actually, really quickly, I do want to make a, no, I'll come back to cardio at the end. Looking at our rules for strength endurance, or looking at our rules for strength in general, we've got core strength exercises, which again, 2 to 3 sets, 8 to 12 repetitions at a medium tempo. So because we're moving the spine now, we're all about just kind of going at that medium tempo. I will say this, just for the sake of argument, I actually really like when I'm doing core stuff in the strength level, I like a 2-2-2. I like a little pause at the top, so they still get a little stabilization in there, but that's just me. So then, same thing with our balance strength, 2-0-2 tempo, right? And our plyometric strength is now performed at a repeating tempo. So we are gonna go 2 sets of everything. Let's go with 12 reps of everything. Actually, we gotta go 10 reps on the plyometric. And I'm gonna go with 12 reps each for that single leg squat, right? My tempo, medium, medium, and repeating. Medium, medium, repeating. 0 seconds rest, because I want to do it as a circuit, because my client's goal is fat loss, and then 60 seconds of rest there. Then we're going to put them through a little bit of SAQ. I'm going to make them do the same routine from last month, only I'm going to add a little bit of agility in there instead. So we're going to do that speed, ladder, 1-ins, like we did last time. And they're going to pair that to a box drill, right? And we'll go 2 sets of each. All right, if I look, hold on. I go over here. Actually, I got to go 3 sets. That's the minimum. So we'll go 3 sets each. My reps are now going to be 3 to 5. So I'm going to keep it relatively low here. My tempo is now fast, right, rather than moderate. So we go fast tempo. 0 seconds of rest, 60 seconds of rest, right? And there we go. So now I've got I got an exercise that allows for greater horizontal inertia, but still limited unpredictability, right? I don't do any quickness drills. I'm adding 1 speed drill and 1 agility drill. So they go from the speed ladder into that box drill where they sprint, side shuffle, back pedal, karaoke. They go back around to the speed ladder and reset. I'd probably have them do it in the opposite direction the second time. That way I keep them nice and even. There we go. Pretty simple stuff. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move into the strength endurance version here. So strength endurance, I want to make sure that I'm choosing 1 strength exercise and 1 stabilization exercise. So rather than doing like total body, chest, back, shoulders, legs, chest, back, shoulders, biceps, triceps, legs, I'm just going to go chest, back, and legs. We're going to keep this kind of simple. This is where actually, by the way, you will probably start getting into things like training splits where you'll have like a workout A and a workout B. But for the sake of argument for today, we're going to keep this really simple. Chest, back, and legs, right? And maybe I'd throw some shoulders in there too. But I want to actually evolve this from our last month, similar to how we did in the example copy we looked at yesterday. So what I'm going to do is I am going to open up my strength checklist here. I'm going to go down to my first chest strength exercise, which is the flat dumbbell chest press. So I'm going to put that here as my exercise A. Then I'm going to go to our other routine from the month before. I'm going to grab that chest press from there, which is the ball dumbbell chest press, and I'm going to pair those two up. And now I've got my strength exercise, and I've paired it with my stabilization exercise, which is great. Basically, they went from a bench, they rolled off that bench, got right on the ball, and continued going. And I would just have 2 sets of dumbbells, right? 35's over here, 15's over here, you know? That's a big jump. Probably less than that. Not quite a big jump like that. Let's go with the upper back exercise. I'm going to go to my strength routine, which is going to be the seated cable row. And that's going to be paired with the standing cable row. So all of a sudden they're on their feet, and that exercise got way harder, right? They had something to put their feet on. They were nice and stable. Then I made them stand up, and now their core has to work as they keep going and using that upper back even further. And then we're going to go with the legs. First leg exercise we got is the leg press. Gross. I am anti-leg press personally. And then I'm going to pair that with the ball squat. And at least it's a good pair. There's our superset techniques. That is unique to the strength endurance phase. Now I did something here that I like to do with my clients, which is just I signify that it's a superset by grouping them up and then leaving a gap. You don't have to do that. Just write it in your coaching tips, you know, but a lot of times, like if you do stuff like this, sometimes I'll see people do the whole thing as like one big circuit, which by the way, I'm actually a fan of. You can totally do that if your goal is super, super fat loss. And you really don't care about increasing your strength. But again, we lose intensity when we do that. And because I still want to maintain some intensity with this client, especially because I'm taking him into later phases, I'm probably going to do it like this. You can totally do the superset thing still as a circuit, guys. Like if you wanted to do this, right? 0 seconds rest, and then just like 60 seconds rest at the end. You know, all of this is recovering, you know, while you're doing the rest of it. So that still counts. You're still supersetting. You're still working on endurance. In fact, you're working more on endurance. I just don't like the effect that it has sometimes when you get back to the top. A lot of times you'll lose intensity on round 2 and round 3. So we're gonna go with this version here. So I go with my strength and endurance stuff. So now, until now I've been in here, right? But now I've got to get into my rules for strength endurance. So that's going to be 2 to 4 sets, 8 to 12 repetitions for each exercise, 2-0-2 tempo for the strength movement, but a 4-2-1 tempo for the stabilization movement, 70 to 80% of your 1 rep max, and 60 seconds of rest after your stabilization movement, but no rest after the strength movement. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to do, let's go with 3 sets this time. And we'll go with, because again, I want to keep my intensity somewhat high, even though my client is like doing some fat loss programming, right? I'm gonna go with the lower repetition on the scale, right? I'm not gonna go all the way down. I'm gonna go with 10, right? That's a pretty good muscle building, right? It's not super high because it's really 20 repetitions total, right? Or I could have done 8, which would be 16 repetitions total. Both are pretty good. I like them both. So we'll go with 2-0-2, right? With 0 seconds of rest for my strength movement, and then 4-2-1 with 60 seconds of rest for my stabilization. And they're gonna do straight sets. They're gonna rest 60 seconds and then go back and do the same thing. And I'm just gonna go ahead and copy this. There we go. There is the resistance section written. Now, just like before, I'm gonna do a double treadmill. Right? They're gonna do, let's say, another 20 minutes. But this time, they are gonna be in zone 1 and 2. So now we are doing a stage 2 cardio routine with our client, right? So actually I need a triple, treadmill bit. So they're gonna do zone 2, which is 76 to 85%, but then they're gonna recover in zone 1, which is 65 to 75%. So I'm gonna go back over here and I'm gonna do a triple treadmill section because they need one that is the high intensity and one that is the low intensity recovery section. So I put it over here where it's going to be 1 minute and then 3 minutes. And we'll have them, so that's a total of 4 minutes for both of those put together. I wanted to have total 20 minutes total, so they're gonna do 5 sets. And the 1 minute is gonna be 76 to 85% heart rate max, and then they recover in zone 1 at 65 to 75% heart rate max. So they're gonna get 5 intervals at the end of their routine. 3 minutes of recovery at first, right? And then they just cool down by doing 50 to another 5 minutes, 50 to 60%, nothing crazy. And then we don't want to do active stretches at the end of our routine, right? So we actually want to do static stretches. So I'm just going to steal my warm up and my cool down from the last month. I say that. Oh my God. Just let me copy paste. There we go. And there's our whole routine, right? So active flexibility, right? SMR plus active stretches, strength exercises in the movement prep, speed plus agility exercises in the SAQ, strength plus stabilization exercises in resistance, stage 2 cardio, followed by corrective flexibility for our cool down, because we always do corrective for cool down. Any questions on our basic strength endurance routine? Nothing? All right, so we're gonna do something kind of fun here that I always like to do. Basic strength endurance routine. All right, so I wanna show you guys a really basic, simple, let's see here, I gotta close that one. Really basic, simple way to modify as we move into phase 3 here. So I know we're not going back to the PowerPoint just yet, but I do want to go back to the notes really quickly. So take a look here at our client in phase 3. This is hypertrophy, right? So let's say your client finishes up strength endurance, and now they're moving into the hypertrophy phase of training, right? So we're going to further increase the load capacity, moving into high intensity with relatively short rest periods, which means, honestly, it's not that high intensity, right? It's not like it's high intensity, but it's not maximal intensity, right? Like it's high in the sense that like your body goes, holy crap, I need to get stronger, right? But it's not like super high intensity. With the goal of increasing muscle volume. Basically, you're just trying to create as much inflammation as possible so that your body goes, oh God, I need to be puffy. And that puffiness translates to larger muscles. It really actually is kind of that simple. So here's what's kind of cool. If we go back to here, all of this is the same, right? The only thing that changes is the resistance section. So guess what? We're gonna go back to our routine here. I am not going to change a thing. Now, would I change a thing in the real world if it was actually my client? Abso-freaking-lutely. Because I don't want their body to get too used to stuff. But I really want to highlight to you guys the fact that like there's no difference between strength endurance, hypertrophy, or max strength until you get to the resistance section. So we keep the warm up, we keep the movement prep, we keep the SAQ, and then we're just going to remove all these stabilization exercises, right? No balls, no standing, right? Nothing unstable. And then that's not much of a routine anymore, right? That's only 3 exercises. So let's change this up and add back in our total body exercises and our biceps and triceps. So I am actually going to need a few rows here. Where's my list? There it is. Okay, so going back to the top, let's get a total body exercise in there. I actually don't do a lot of total body with hypertrophy. Burns too many calories. Then we go chest, we go back. Let's get some shoulders in there. So my first shoulder exercise, seated dumbbell shoulder press. And we got to get the vanity muscles in there. So let's get some biceps and triceps. Seated two-arm dumbbell bicep curl. And for our triceps, cable push down. Everybody's favorite. And guess what? Our cardio, same thing. Cardio doesn't have to change at all. So now I got to make sure I pick my hypertrophy reps though. So 3 to 5 sets, 6 to 12 reps, 202 tempo. Notice how our intensity went from 70 to 80 up to 75 to 85. That makes sense because we went from like 70 to 75 because we went from 8 down to 6. So by lowering the reps by 2, we raised the intensity by 5%. And then same thing here, right? We went from, oh, I'm sorry, that's on the other side, 85%, from 80 to 85%, not 70 to 75. So we definitely see like a slightly higher intensity here because we are lowering the reps down. So let's do that, shall we? Let's go with, it's supposed to be 3 to 5 sets. Let's go with 4 sets. And we're gonna go with 8 reps. And let's go with a 202 tempo. What am I doing? Now here's the thing about this routine. Do you guys notice any fatal flaw here?
It gets longer?
It is the world's longest workout. We just wrote a routine that's going to take 10 hours to complete. So the thing about this is where you start to see the bros split. The bro split is chest day, leg day, back day, shoulder day, arm day, ab day. If you want to do a freaking ab day all by itself, this is where you start really splitting your body parts up. And you will also notice that like this stuff here and this stuff here really, really starts to become optional because the goal of oops, I forgot to change the hypertrophy thing. Our goal here is muscle gain, right? This is a new routine. This is totally based on something else, right? So because our goal is muscle gain, I'm caring a lot less about SIQ and I'm caring a lot less about cardio. So if I were to remove these things and I were to remove these things, right, that's going to make a lot more space for us to be able to do all this. I'm going to keep the movement prep because that's always going to be important. Also, again, this is where you often go. My favorite hypertrophy split, by the way, I really like pairing like upper body all together on one day and lower body all together on the other day. And I actually will often skip my movement prep on my upper body day because there's 3 parts to your upper body. You get your chest, shoulders, and back, right? And so like a lot of times I'll have workout A and workout B, and I'll get half my volume done at the beginning of my week, and I'll do the other half of my volume at the end of the week. So like Monday would be workout A, Tuesday would be workout B, Thursday would be workout A again, and Friday would be workout B. And I'd have Wednesday as like a medium day where I would get all my cardio in. And then maybe Saturday because it's me and I love cardio. But like that's a split that ensures that I'm getting enough volume overall to get a good hypertrophy response, but I'm splitting it up. And so like workout A would be chest, shoulders, and upper back, and workout B would be legs and movement prep. Does that make sense, guys? Cool. That way I'm not losing it, but that's not the example we're building here. This example here is really just meant to be super, super, super basic. So actually, just for the sake of space, guys, I need to actually delete these rows here just because it got too big to fit on one page. But you can see this is very much a straight set routine. All right. Oh, and I forgot to change it to November.
One more thing, Brad. And could you take out the cardio out of your cool down too if you're in hypertrophy?
You still want to ease out of exercise. I would keep it in there. Don't get me wrong, most of your clients are going to skip it anyways. But like, you kind of want to keep it in there because you want to eat. The whole point of the cool down at the end, and the point of the, I didn't delete it from the warm up either. The point is to ease into exercise and to ease out. You don't want to go from like your final set of like barbell squats where you're like, and then just start stretching because your heart rate's like, and your body's like, oh my God, we literally must have been fighting a bear. Like if you cool down, your body goes, okay, and it returns to normal, and you get a lot of like positive like hormonal response. And it's almost like, Robert, this is an analogy almost only for you, except for anybody who has read Power of Habit. But you remember how like a big part of the Power of Habit is like giving yourself those little like mental rewards and saying like, good job, me. That's kind of what the cardio on the end of your workout is. It's just a sense of like triggering to your brain and body that the routine and the stress is over.
Brad, that's also helpful to help ease the soreness of the muscles, right?
That is also a huge deal. It also pulls all the lactic acid out as well. Thank you for taking the physiologic approach. Yeah, absolutely.
No, you taught me that.
No, that's very true. You don't want to let all that lactic acid. I mean, in hypertrophy, there's an argument for it, because you're like, oh, I want to keep all that lovely lactic acid. That's what's making me inflamed. That's what gives me my gains. That's the Z on my gains. But like, by that point, it's set for a while. You're good. Get it out of there. All right. Now we got to move into max strength. This is going to be phase 4. Our client has made it to December 17th. We have moved forward a month. And now we're still in the muscle gain. I'm just going to, keep muscle gain here because there is a good hypertrophy response that does happen with max strength. And again, guess what? Nothing changed. Again, the movement prep for max strength, hypertrophy, and strength is all the same. So we get to skip all this stuff and just leave it the same. Again, I would probably change it in the real world. And just move straight down here to the resistance section. Now, for the sake of resistance section, here's the thing. You honestly, you probably do want to change up your exercises. You probably do want to move from, we've already been doing a lot of these, like that flat dumbbell chest press. We've been doing it for 8 weeks at this point, right? And generally you want to change your exercises every 6 to 8 weeks. I'm sorry, every 4 to 8 weeks. 4 to 6 if you ask a lot of people. But we're going to go ahead and just keep it the same. 12 weeks, here's the thing. You can kind of stretch out. Like when I say you want to change your exercises up, I mean it, but we've changed our reps so much, right? We went from 12 reps down, or 10 reps down to 8, and we're about to drop it all the way down to 5. That is going to make that dumbbell chest press almost feel like a completely different exercise. We've also changed our tempo from slow to medium, and we're about to move it to fast, right? So there's actually an argument to be made that if you want to keep that bench press and you want to do it for a 12-week period, you probably still will experience some pretty effective growth without having to change it up too much because you've changed so many other things. You just don't want to leave it the same. You don't want to be one of those people that like benches every day for 10 years and it's just like, why isn't it getting better anymore? It's like, because you're doing the same thing, like me, like I love running. It's my favorite event. But like I have to change it up or I'm not going to get any better at it, So I do uphill training for a little while. I do sprint training for a little while. I do endurance training for a little while. I'm constantly changing that up. So there's just a little bit of a different stimulus so that I do continue to grow. And luckily stage training does that for me. But if I were to only rely on stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3 as like the change, it probably wouldn't be enough change. So I'm going to change it up in other ways. I'm going to also add some hills in there, some trail running, right? So little things like that. All right, so here's our max strength routine. Um, here's our max strength routine, right? Again, all this stayed the same. Nothing changed there. But then let's go over to our resistance strength. We're going to see higher sets, lower reps, and faster tempos with maximal intensities and tons of rest. So let's go from 4 sets up to 5. Let's drop our reps down to 5 as well. And let's change our tempo to XXX. Now, again, world's longest routine, because look at this, 3 minutes of rest. That is a lot of rest. This routine right here just became 2 hours. So I'm gonna do what any sensible person would do. I'm gonna kill the arms. This is still like it is like almost a 2-hour workout already. So this is where we really would probably get, oh, I'm also gonna kill the total body exercise. So I would this is where you definitely split things up. When it comes to powerlifting, you really need to have a training split, and you need to train like many times throughout the week. This is also why we tend to only rely, when it comes to powerlifting, on our compound movements. So I don't even like the flat dumbbell chest press here. I like the barbell bench press. I really don't like the seated cable row here. I like the bent over row. I don't like the dumbbell shoulder press. I like the military press, and I always hate the leg press anyways. Although, man, you could maybe sell me on a leg press here rather than any of the other phases, but you're never going to beat the barbell squat. It's the best exercise in the gym. So that is probably what my routine would actually look like in max strength. And you will notice in your textbooks, it will say movement prep is optional for max strength and power clients because of how long the routines take. So I probably would delete this as well and move it to a separate day. So if it were me and I were training a client like this is a pretty good routine, by the way. They're going to get 15 total sets by the end of the week if they're training 3 times a week. That's not bad. If I were to change it to 6 sets, they would be getting 18 sets per week, which is great amounts of volume. And I would probably just do different versions of the same movements. I'd probably have a workout A and a workout B. I'd either do a 2-day split or a 3-day split. So I'd have like probably bench press here if it were really me. And then on my day 2, I'd probably have incline bench press. And then day 3, I would either just go back to workout A again, or I'd change it up and maybe, and I hate decline bench press. I'd probably go flat dumbbell chest press, or maybe even chest press machine actually, because I don't really like flies and I don't really like decline bench press. Both of those biomechanically just don't make a lot of sense. So it'd probably be something like that. But chances are I like the A-B split. I'd probably just do A-B-A, B-A-B, A-B-A, B-A-B. I'd do bent over row, probably pair that with the next day's version, which would be like weighted pull-ups. And then the other version would just go back to like the row. Military press, I'd go with like a heavy military press there. And then shoulders is actually kind of a hard one to do in like a second version. So I'd probably go with a push press in a neutral grip. So I'd probably go like military press on workout A, and then like a push press neutral grip with dumbbells for workout B. And I'd probably do leg press, I'd probably do barbell squat, and I'd either pair that with deadlift on the other day. Actually, that's exactly what I'd do. Maybe I'd do split lunges. But deadlift is the second best lift in the entire gym. And that'd be a real max strength routine for me. So this isn't bad though. This is a pretty good example version of a max strength routine. And then again, we cool down with our corrective flexibility, right? Oops. Oh, I didn't change hypertrophy. Really quickly, I need to do that. Desktop. Basic max strength. Hold on, I gotta open that hypertrophy one real quick and change this to hypertrophy. All right. Let's go ahead and finally be able to close that and get back to our PowerPoint and back to our notes. And let's do a power routine. So power level, right? Highest level is all about developing further force production, but really like rate of force production, right? So we are still seeing more prime mover strength, but we're seeing rate of that happen as well, right? So this builds on the foundation of strength in order to increase rate of force production. So, you know, the stabilization level builds your foundation. The strength level builds on that foundation to enhance force production. And the power level builds on that foundation to enhance rate of force production. So we're going to use low to moderate sets. We're going to look as fast as we can safely. And we should always follow our power exercise with a strength our strength exercise with a power exercise. So the power phase is going to use maximal loads paired with minimal loads performed in an explosive manner in as fast as possible in order to create maximum rate of force production. This is sometimes referred to as contrast sets, by the way. NASM doesn't call them that, but sometimes if you've ever seen that term before, a contrast set is a super heavy exercise paired with a super light exercise. There's a contrast between the two. So max strength is very similar to strength endurance. Take a look here, guys. You can see we are going to do for flexibility, we are going to do functional flexibility, which will still have foam rolling, paired with dynamic stretches this time. We're going to do stage 3 cardio, which is going to incorporate zone 1 from our first place, zone 2 from our second, and zone 3, which is our third for stage 3. Then we're going to do core power, balance power, and plyometric power. By the way, they finally sync up on reps. So they're not going from like 12, 12, 10. And then our SAQ stuff, we are going to get maximal horizontal inertia, aka maximal agility, maximal unpredictability, which means we're incorporating quickness drills here finally. So we get speed plus agility plus quickness. Then we are doing the superset thing just like we did in strength endurance. The only difference is we are starting with a strength movement, and then we are pairing it with a power movement instead of pairing it with a stabilization. Now, sometimes people get a little confused by this. They're like, wouldn't I go power first because I'm in the power level? That's not what's important. What's important is intensity. The reason the strength movement was first, wasn't because it's the strength level. It was first because it's the one with the heavy weight. Always start with your heavy weight first. That's also why I know that NASM loves to go total body, chest, back, shoulders, legs. But if you ask anybody in the industry, if you ask anybody else in the industry, they'll tell you, start with your legs. Start with the heaviest stuff first. Always get the heavy. Like when you're arranging your workouts, guys, like let's say you have a chest day and you're just doing chest. You're going to do bench press, incline bench press, dumbbell flies. You'll end up with like a cable push down or something. You're doing like a tricep stuff. It's your chest try. If you're doing that, start with the bench press first. Don't start with your flies, right? Whatever the most weight that you can lift, get that out of the way at the top of your workout because you don't want to lose intensity by the time you get to the end. So for instance, I just got done doing a total body routine last month. This month, I'm doing an upper lower split. And I chose some of the same exercises from last month that I already did. But I wasn't doing bench press last month, and this month I am. So last month I did bench chest press, dumbbell chest press, which is on a bench. This month I'm doing bench press, and then my second exercise I get into late. Oh, I'm lying. Sorry. I did an incline. I was gonna say, I was like, why would I do the same movement? Incline chest press is something I did last month, and I did it for like 12 to 15 reps last month. And this month, I'm doing like 8 to 10 reps. So I did my bench press first because that's the heaviest, and then I rack it. And then later on in the routine, I get to an incline chest press. And I'm lifting about the same weight that I lifted last month, with like the exception it's like only 5 pounds heavier. Yet the reps are way lower. So you would think that I'd lift way heavier, but it's the second chest exercise I do in the routine. And that's why it loses some intensity. always, always, always get your heavy stuff out of the way first, because you're going to be fatigued by the time you get to the small muscles. Never start with arms. At the end of the day, that's the message. Don't start with arms. NASM likes doing the total body, chest, back, shoulders, legs, biceps, triceps thing. It likes going that way because it goes from top of the body to the lower part of the body, which has some really good cardiovascular effects. But it's, I don't know, kind of detrimental to the strength training side of things. So this is where, you know, I've told you guys this before. I'm here to teach you the NASM. I don't always have to agree with them. All right. So starting with resistance strength exercises and pairing that with resistance power. Let's go back to our example routine here. Where's my blank? So I'm going to pick very similar to my max strength routine, the same exercises, but they are going to pair with power versions. So I need to make sure that I superset each of these together. Actually, I don't need to do that. I can do it this way. So, actually, hold on. I'm getting ahead of myself here. I got to start with the warm up. sorry. So let's go up here. We're going to do functional flexibility, which is going to be SMR and dynamic stretches. So this is our example power routine. Client's name, John Johnson. The date is January 17th, and we made it to 2021. Thank God. And this is going to be, because power does burn a lot of calories, I'm going to go ahead and go back and call this a fat loss routine. And we'll put him into phase 5. So we're going to SMR, the hamstrings, piriformis, and TFL. And then this time, instead of doing static stretches or instead of doing active stretches, I'm going to do dynamic stretches. And I'm going to have to do them for sets and reps this time. I think I just realized a mistake that I made earlier. I may have forgotten. I think I changed all the active flexibility stuff and then didn't put the reps down. All right, so I'm gonna go with dynamic hamstring stretch. Let's go with, if I open my exercise checklist here, and I go to my list of dynamic stretches, I've got things like prisoner squats, multiplanar lunge with reach, single leg squat touchdown, tube walking side to side, right? A lot of these look like movement prep exercises because honestly they are. But leg swings front to back, that is very good for my hamstrings. So I'm gonna copy that. I'm going to put it in my routine here. I need a good piriformis stretch, which is that side-to-side glute muscle. So guess what? Leg swings side to side is going to serve me pretty well there. And then I really like tube walking side to side as well, which is just a really great way to kind of get my glutes turned on and continue stretching some things out. I'm then finally going to end this with, let's say, I'm going to do 2 more. Let's go with a lunge with rotation. That's going to be good for my TFL because I'm going to rotate away from that TFL. And finally, we'll end it with, let's get some upper body in there. Let's get a push up with rotation. I know it's not really too related to any of this stuff, but we got to get a little upper body, right? Now you'll notice I didn't leave myself any room for cardio. Cardio is technically optional in phase 5 for the warm-up because this circuit right here is going to get your heart rate up the same way a cardio warm-up would. So we're gonna do 1 set here, but I'm gonna do 2 sets of everything else. We're gonna say 30 seconds each because that's foam rolling and that's how foam rolling works. But here, if I go to my rules, I'm gonna do 1 to 2 sets, 3 to 10 exercises, 10 to 15 reps. Let's go with 10 reps each. Oop. that's going to get my heart rate up plenty. And actually should only take, it'll take about 5 minutes, right? That's not too bad. Now let's go with our core, our balance, and our reactive section. So I'm going to open up here. I'm going to choose the first ones. That's a rotation chest pass, multiplanar hop with stabilization. So that's all 3 planes of motion there, and ice skaters. That's pretty good. So medicine ball chest pass, there's my core power, right? Boom, super explosive. Multiplanar hop with stabilization. That's actually pretty simple. That's literally where you're just going to hop and stabilize, and then you're going to hop and stabilize, and then you're going to hop and stabilize. That's your balance power exercise. It's not that explosive, but don't worry, you're about to get plenty explosive when you get into your ice skaters, right? Looking at my rules here, 2 to 3 sets, 8 to 12 repetitions for each. Because this workout, again, is probably going to be pretty long, I'm going to go with 2 sets of each of these. And for my reps, let's go with 10 because I went fairly low on the sets. And my tempo is XXX for all of them. 0 seconds rest, 0 seconds rest, 60 seconds rest. Okay. Now I need a speed drill. So we're going to go speed ladder, 1-ins, just like before. Now I need an agility drill. I'm going to go into a box drill. But now I need a quickness drill. And so we're going to pair that with, I'd probably throw something out and make them catch it. But I want to use an example that's in your textbook. So I'm going to go with the modified box drill. Right? So they're going to go through the box drill, then they're going to go and they're going to get the one where I point and tell them which direction to go. They don't know where I'm going to point, right? So that's what makes it a quickness drill. 3 to 5 sets, 3 to 5 reps. So let's again keep that kind of short. And our tempo here is maximal velocity, so XXX tempo. Zero seconds rest, 0 seconds rest, 60 seconds rest. Actually, yeah, 60 seconds will be fine. Okay, now we're into the max strength part. Or I'm sorry, we're into the power resistance part. So we do flat dumbbell chest press. We got to pair that with a power movement. So I go into my power checklist. The first one, 2 arm. Yeah, these actually are fairly good pairs. I'll be honest, this is a kind of a risky way to do this because I keep expecting 2 movements that are just totally like the same muscle but totally different looking. But this is working pretty well. So flat dumbbell chest press, 2-arm medicine ball chest pass. Okay, there we go. This is not the best pair. Medicine ball pull over throw compared to seated cable row. It's not bad, but that's this, right? Which is somewhat similar, right? It's shoulder extension, and like you can see if I'm doing a seated row, right? That's still shoulder extension as well. It's not bad. It's not perfect, but it's not terrible. So we'll keep that pair. You really do want your movements to be somewhat similar. Upper back power is rough. Like, honestly, it's really hard to do in most gyms because honestly, most of your managers will scream at you the minute you throw a medicine ball across the gym. Like chest passes are okay if you're off in the corner, but most managers hate it. Here's one that's totally off. So we went with a seated dumbbell shoulder press to a front medicine ball oblique throw. Not super similar in terms of movements, right? One is literally this, and the other one is this. So one's more like a shoulder raise. If I were pairing like if I were doing like a heavy shoulder raise, like a front raise or something, I would totally pair that with a medicine ball oblique throw. But honestly, I'm gonna break our rules here for a little bit, and I'm gonna go with speed tubing shoulder chest press because that honestly is much closer. And basically what that is that you're going to do your dumbbell shoulder press, and then you're going to grab speed tubing, which is just resistance bands, step your feet onto those bands, and you're going to do it like this. It looks kind of silly, but honestly, it's very effective. Just like that. You're going to snap it up, and that resistance band is going to rip you back down. And that's what helps you develop your power. Anybody ever done like a jump trainer? You guys ever goofed around with one of those? So where they tie it around your waist and the rubber bands on the floor, and you jump and it rips you back down. Super, super, super effective. And then we'll pair that with a leg press. Come on, baby. Yeah, squat jump. Good job. So there we go. Now, I am going to do, you'll notice our sets go slightly down here. We went from 4 to 6 sets back down to 3 to 5. So I'm going to go right in the middle here, and I'm going to go back to 4 sets of everything. And reps-wise, you are going to go 1 to 5 reps for your strength movement. So that's the same as our max strength routine. But then 8 to 10 reps for your power movement. Because the intensity is so low, you need to do higher repetitions to get change there. So we're going to do 5 reps for all the strength movements. And let's go with 10 reps for all the power movements. Tempo, X, X, X for both. Rest, 0 seconds rest after the first exercise, 3 minutes rest after the second. There we go. There's your contrast set workout. This is going to be a long workout. Honestly, probably too long. But we need to steal our cool down from all of our other routines. So I'm going to copy that and paste it there. All right. Oh, I need space. Freaking dynamic stretches take up so much space. No. No, I want to leave the gap. Where's my page? Margins. Boop. Boop. Oh, you got to be kidding me. All right, one more time. Margins. Kidding me right now? There's no way. There's no way that wouldn't fit. All right. Killing the NASM logo. There we go. Don't tell them. And we'll save that as our example power routine. I'm sending these out to you guys today, so I want to have them. I made one mistake earlier. I forgot to change when I was trying to like show you the similarities between the strength and the stabilization stuff. I forgot to change. Yeah, you can't do active stretches for 30 seconds. You need to hold them for 1 to 2 seconds. Actually, what we'll do for duration is I actually like to put the reps here. Let's go. Take a look at our routines for the strength flexibility stuff. It's 5 to 10 reps, 1 to 2 second holds. So I'm going to go with 10 reps each. And then our coaching tips will say, hold each rep 1 to 2 seconds. So I need to copy that into all of our strength routines here real quick. Hypertrophy, where's strength endurance? This is like the problem with my brain. This always happens on big chart day. I always follow the patterns. My brain loves patterns. All right, and that is honestly all the differences between each of our individual phases. Let's go ahead and get back to our notes, wrap up our PowerPoint real quick, and kick you guys out of here. Wait, where are my notes? They're there. All right, so AOPT model in regards to youth, we have some changes here that we are going to make. Stabilization level, really, we're primarily focusing on phases 1, 2, and 5. Stabilization, super important still, right? Stability, endurance, and neuromuscular efficiency. All of that is the same. Strength level, we're mostly focusing on supersets, right? Medium tempo, 8 to 12 repetitions. So all that's the same. The power phase, though, we're really not doing the superset. We're just going to remove that max strength portion. We're just going to do power by itself. That's important for use because they really don't have the discipline or the energy systems really to do max strength lifting. So that is one adjustment we're going to make. The question?
Yeah. Also, the SAQ is different because I don't remember seeing in the previous OPT any SAQ in the obese, the senior, or their postural disorders. We skipped over SAQ.
Yeah, we don't. We do it in the sports class and we do it in the youth class. Those are the two areas that like we put a little emphasis on those things. The sports class because obviously it's athletics, and the youth class because it's fun. So a lot of times like that replaces your reactive stuff. So yeah, that is another thing that's like kind of a difference with youths. We put a little more emphasis on fun and a little less emphasis on like specific physiologic training, just because they just don't have that energy system.
Okay.
So yeah, good call. There are examples in your book, by the way, of SAQ. They're just not in the glossary. You just have to go to chapter 12. Chapter 12 has here. Oh, I got close. And then I flipped too far on the second one. So when you go to SAQ, you'll see they put like these little charts that kind of show you speed ladder drills, and then they do like cone drills. So you can see they kind of put examples of that.
Yeah,
and
have
then
that in the module, manual, or whatever. Yeah.
The one thing they don't have, they do not put quickness in here. Like quickness is in the sports book. But yeah, it's kind of a bummer. They do kind of skip it in the regular edition of the NASM. But yeah, quickness is just anything they're not expecting. All right, so we know benefits of cardio. The rest of this PowerPoint is just gonna be filled up with like why this is all good. So we do know that obesity is growing, right? We see higher risks of cancer, high cholesterol, and hypertension. So exercise is going to affect all those. The big thing to remember, take a look. I told you they'd come back one more time. The FIT principles are huge when it comes to writing your program. Everything I said today is what's most important when writing your program, from the aspect of like physiologic adaptation. But there is an argument to be made that the FIT principles here are actually the most important thing to regard when writing a program, because that's what makes your workout fun. You know, that's what makes somebody actually do it. Like people ask me all the time, what should I do first, strength training or cardio? I get that question constantly. From a physiologic strength standpoint, you should always do cardio second, because doing cardio second is what ensures that you don't lose intensity, right? But if your client really loves cardio and it's what zones them in, do it first. They're more likely to stick to the program. And that honestly is more important a lot of times. So frequency, how many sessions per week? Generally it's 3 to 5 times. Intensity is the level of demand. You are going to base that on your Borg scale or your maximum heart rate or a percentage of their 1 rep max. Borg scale is pretty good, right? That's that RPE method, rating of perceived exertion. Ask your client how hard it is, right? So a scale of 6 to 20, with 6 being no exertion at all. Exercise starts around 11. This is where your warm up is. This is probably stabilization. This is strength endurance. This is hypertrophy right in the middle here, where you're like just transferring from yellow to orange. And then this would be max strength and power. Both of those are up here. with maximal exertion being true max strength. But again, a lot of times we don't do maximal. Another method for measuring intensity is the talk test method. You can simply, if your client is fully out of breath, ask them questions, which is huge. Time is the length of time spent in the activity. Usually it's about an hour. For youth, we want about an hour of exercise a day. A lot of these routines we built today were probably closer to 90 minutes. Type is whether it's aerobic or if it's like circuit training or if it's playing games, right? Those are all things to consider. And lastly, is it fun? Hugely important for youths. That's the enjoyment factor, right? The E on your FIT principles, your FITty principles. So we like circuit training because it's super effective and you can get a lot of strength and cardio in at the same time. So chances are, guys, when you're writing a youth routine, you should probably focus much more on circuit training. It's a great way to keep them active and keep them from getting bored. And again, you're combining your fun stuff with your effective stuff. And that's always going to be what's best. Now you can do this with one final handout today, which is the youth programming manual. So if you think we built a lot of programs today, one thing that is in your NASM that you guys have a copy of is the youth programming manual. And this has a whole bunch of blank assessment sheets, which are kind of cool. So you can do assessments for youths. It's got the special 1 mile assessments and strength and like push-ups and curl-up assessments that aren't in your regular textbook. And it's got some really great sample training programs. Here's what the year looks like. Here's what the month looks like. There's what the day looks like. And this is basically a bunch of programs that we built just like ours today. Although they're a lot simpler. So there's lots of 2s, lots of phase 1s, and lots of phase 5s. And there's a bunch of them in there. And that's about all I got for you today, guys. Big chart day, lots of info. Question, what's up?
Yes, Brad. You just went over the FIT principle for the time. It's the length of time engaged in an activity.
Yeah, it's 2 things. It's the length of time in the activity and the length of time on a program. So there is 2 there. But yes.
Okay, because
how long
in the homework from Tuesday, oh no, wait, anyway, the last homework, that was marked wrong. When I answered it, it says the term in.
Yeah. Robert texted me last night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I have fixed that on Canvas, but I don't know that it sends you a notification. If you take it again, you will notice that
yeah, I'm gonna do it again.
It'll fix it.
Okay, so Brad, it's not number of training sessions in a given time period.
No, that's frequency.
Oh, I'm so glad we brought that up. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm sorry that it was marked wrong on my answer key again.
All good.
I do always check, but like if the answer key is wrong, then I do kind of only base it off that. So yeah, I apologize for that. It was question, what was it, number 6 or something like that?
Number 2.
Number 2, yeah. Super frustrating.
It's one day, all this you went over, it's all gonna become like breathing
Right.
for me.
God.
Just practice over and over.
Yeah, but it will save your scores, by the way. It didn't, like your homework and all that, your scores are fine.
Okay. No, I was just talking about the program design. I'm
Right.
like, whoo, that's
I know. Ugh.
I'm getting there.
What's that?
I said I'm getting there. It's a work in progress.
You're gonna do great. I would be, like I said, there's so many times where somebody will leave like mod 1 and I'm like, I can put them in capstone now. All right, well, speaking of capstone, Maggie, we'll see you for tomorrow and then get you set up with Mo.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Thanks for everything.
You're welcome.
You're a good teacher.
Oh, thank you. All right, guys.
Thanks.
Oh, bye, Irene. All right, I'll see you guys. See you tomorrow.
All right. Congrats, Maggie. Have fun in capstone.
I'll see you around, Robert.
All
All right.
All right, talk to you later. Bye.
You guys have a good day.
You too.